It's a town grounded in deep Scandinavian roots, a town that produces solid, God-fearing people, a town that looks forward to the future but takes pride in its past. July 4th, 1986, Ulen's 514 people put on the celebration of a lifetime, a celebration that not only honors the birth of our country, but the birth of Ulen 100 years ago. The history of this town goes back even further than 1886. The first settler was Ole Ulen, who, with his wife and 3 daughters, arrived in the Ulen Township in 1871. He came with 2 teams of oxen, a covered wagon, and a few head of stock. Problems were numerous for this courageous and resourceful man. Encounters with Indians, drought, severe cold, and the great grasshopper plague. But the Ulen survived, and soon other pioneers settled. In the spring of 1886, the Northern Pacific Railroad arrived, where Ulen is now located. When workers had completed the track, homesteaders at once thought this would be a fine site for a town. Thus, the birth of Ulen, named in honor of the first settler, Ole Ulen. The migration of immigrants continued at a heavy pace, and the town grew by leaps and bounds. Roads were built. Agriculture flourished. It was the beginning of the mechanical age. The use of steam to power tractors and threshing machines were incorporated, helping the farmer immensely. The days of threshing crews coming to the family farm were very busy and exciting. But there were bad times. This picture here, taken in Ulen after the Big Fire of 1906 that destroyed the City Hotel and other businesses to the north. Early settlers passed away, but the town of Ulen does not forget them. Nestled quietly in a wooded area near a farmstead is Sleeper Cemetery. Here lies those hardy pioneers who risked their lives to settle on this land and to establish the town of Ulen. The cemetery, located 1.5 miles northwest of Ulen, contains the graves of familiar homesteaders such as Dahl, Hendrickson, Strand, and Evensons. Here, too, is where Ole Ulen and his wife Torgen are buried. Ole died in 1890 when he was 68 years old. Some of his great-grandchildren came back to Ulen during its centennial on the 4th of July weekend in 1986. They say they're proud of their roots. This is 67-year-old Archie Asselson.
I think myself, they're generous people, and I think that's been handed down. And not only in giving their land and their money, but they were generous. A lot of people don't realize it, but within the home that never got out. And my parents were that way, and I think that came from Ole Ulen and Ole Asselson. And they were caring people, I know that. And I think that's rubbed off on us, too.
Archie's 80-year-old sister, Eleanor, who was stationed at Pearl Harbor as an Army nurse during the Japanese attack, agrees there's a sense of pride in being related to Ole Ulen.
Well, you can't help but have it within, and I don't know how much of it is on the outside, but that's how I feel.
And Eleanor's 78-year-old sister, Carol Badorf, agrees.
He was a kind person. He was
Religious.
Right. Very religious.
The town of Ulen also has several other cemeteries that are beautifully maintained by local churches to remember past Ulenites. One of 2 cemeteries owned by Bethlehem Lutheran Church is located 1 mile west of town. Here, more descendants of early pioneers are buried. Those such as Madsen, Branville, Fries, Holte, Ornbrechts, and others. Bethlehem's other cemetery is located just north of town by the town's park. That's where other people who walked the streets of Ulen at one time have found their final resting area. Names include Burtness, Asselson, Potter, Mobeck, Jacobson, Dahl, and others. Calvary Lutheran Church at Ulen also has a cemetery located right next to Bethlehem's, north of town. Some names of those who are buried here include Anderson, Gilbertson, Wagner, Winjum, Koenig, Peterson, and Heggie. One of the most exciting events ever to happen in Ulen centered around something this man, Hans Hansen, found. Back in 1911, Hansen was plowing a field, heard the scraping noise of metal against metal. He looked down and found a Viking sword, one that resembles this one located in the town's museum. The sword was determined to be one of the most significant finds relating to the expedition led by Viking explorer Paul Knutson in 1362. A historical marker is located just north of town, dedicating this monument to Knutson and other Viking explorers. The sword is similar to those in common usage in Europe during the 14th century. No other specimen of this sword has been found in North America and only a few in Northern Europe. As the town of Ulen grew through the 20th century, use of the railroad grew along with it. But that era came to an end in 1984. The railroad bridge crossing the south branch of the Wild Rice River was torn out. After 98 years, the train no longer goes through Ulen. Some tracks remain to the south of town, and occasionally a train backs into town from Winnipeg Junction to pick up grain cars at the local elevator. But mostly, the tracks are empty, deserted, torn out. Only a mere reminder of the past, when trains of all kinds whistle through town daily. It was branch abandonment, and to the people of Ulen, it was very discouraging. But Ulen of 1986 remains strong despite the demise of the railroad. The economy of the area is primarily agriculture. Farming is very diversified with grain of all types. And though the agricultural industry has been depressed during the 1980s, farmers here remain upbeat, waiting for the good times to come. There are nearly 30 businesses in Ulen in 1986. The largest is the Tri-County Co-op Elevator, established in 1949. The elevator has seen some hard times. It was burned down in 1957 and then rebuilt. Leo Ashmore manages the elevator, which includes 2 large-sized storage bins, drying facilities, and a seed plant. Boxcars are used to move a lot of the grain out of the elevator. Also a part of the elevator is the sunflower seed drying plant. Built in 1979, the plant was used extensively during the early 1980s when many farmers planted sunflowers. It has not been used as much recently because farmers have planted less flowers due to the crop's low price. Another agribusiness in Ulen is the Flom Ulen Fertilizer Company. It mixes and sells fertilizer of all kinds, mostly to farmers. It's a locally owned co-op. The Northwestern State Bank of Ulen is the backbone of many businesses in town. The bank opened in 1941. One of the historic events of the bank occurred in 1958 when it reached the $1 million figure in deposits. A popular spot in town is the old post office building, where people come to get their mail and also send it out. I said old post office building because the new one is now being built right next door to the old one. Soon, future generations of Ulenites will enjoy a modern, new building for their post office needs. There are plenty of places in Ulen to purchase gasoline and have your vehicles checked. There's APCO full-service gasoline station, owned and operated by Russell Borgen. His sons also work here. There's Ulen Co-op Oil Company, also a full-service gas station. Prices for a gallon of gasoline in 1986 are about 80 to 85 cents, if you're wondering. There's also the Standard Amoco gas station, owned and operated by Carl Herzog. Herzog started working here in 1947. He tells us what his business is like some 40 years later.
In the beginning of the year, it was about $1.33, I think, 33.9 a gallon. Right now, it's 88.9. When I started here, working here, I think we were selling it for 29.9. That was back in 1947. And, of course, in 1972 and 73, I think, is when it took its big jump in a short time.
There's also an oil company in town. It's the Fevig Oil Company, owned by David Fevig. He also is the mayor of Ulen and tells us there's a real sense of responsibility among folks here to keep Ulen alive and well.
They're pretty dedicated here. I mean, I don't know if you have noticed, the area, you went over the Centennial now, how people have kept up the town as far as how clean it is. They've done a lot of painting and the streets, they keep the yards mowed, and there's been a lot of remodeling done. And they take a lot of pride in their community here, I think.
In the back of the Fevic Oil Company building is where one of the top mechanics in the area works, Clifford Swenson. Swenson repairs autos, tractors, pickups, just about anything that has an engine. When it comes to food, there are plenty of places to get it in Ulen. If it's groceries you need, try Dale's Grocery. Dale Tweeden has owned this business for 10 years now.
We have a complete line of fresh meats and produce and bakery goods, and a complete line of groceries and frozen foods, and a free delivery service that we provide to our older customers, and we try to cater to them quite a bit. And we're affiliated with Hart's Wholesalers, and they supply us with an ad every week that we do a lot of advertising as far as, on special products and stuff like that.
And how about meat? Carl Holm at Home Processing would love to butcher your favorite piece of red meat. Carl and his wife Charlene have been in business here in Ulen for 11 years.
We're not getting rich, but it's a good living and a comfortable living, and I like small town living.
But maybe you need to satisfy your appetite with something sweet. Then Eldon's Place is for you. Coffee, pizza, candy, pop, snacks, and ice cream are all served at Eldon's Place, owned by Eldon Wang. If you're looking for more of a sit-down eating experience, try BJ's Cafe, owned by Robert Herzog. BJ's serves food for all meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The business began in the early 1980s. And if you love ice cream, along with burgers and fries, Herzog's Drive-In would love to have your business. This drive-in is a real treat during the hot summer months. It's owned by Carl, David, and Robert Herzog, all of Ulen. But maybe you're just looking to whet your appetite. Gloria Peterson, who runs the bar at the VFW Club, would service your needs. She serves the drink of your choice here in Ulen. There's also the Nordic Lounge Bar, the off and on-sale municipal liquor store. This is a very popular evening establishment in Ulen where people can meet, exchange ideas, thoughts, and a few laughs over a cool one. The trend of the 1980s is quick and convenient health care. Ulen certainly has that with its community clinic. Dr. Dietz is on duty all day. Mrs. Tony Dexheimer is the clinic's full-time nurse. Ulen has had this clinic for about 30 years. Many ailments can be remedied with medicine, and that need is met at the Ulen Drug Store. It's been in business for 8 years, and although it sells a little bit of everything, the backbone of the drugstore is meeting the pharmaceutical needs of Ulenites. Where do you go for your building and hardware needs? Well, how about the Ulen Building Supplies, the lumber company in town? It features paints, tools, hardware, kitchens, plumbing, electrical equipment, and of course, all the lumber you'd ever need. Co-owner and manager, Glenn Knutson.
I feel that the sales are there if you want to go after them. The problem is the margins that we have to sell at to get the things, competing with the larger companies. It's a little bit tough, and you really have to run a tight ship. You have to run with very little overhead, with very few employees. You've got to work hard. I work an 80-hour week generally. I try to work about what normally 2 men would work, and that's about the only way you can really do it. You've got to be really devoted and still be willing to work for probably less than what you'd be able to work for as a wage earner.
There's also Hanson's Hardware and Plumbing, owned by Don Hanson. This business features our own hardware along with plumbing, heating supplies, toys, and gifts. For your furniture needs, you could certainly visit Carl's Woodworking and Furniture Refinishing. Owned and operated by Carl Lucken, Carl opened this business in the spring of 1986. Right next to Carl's place is an office shared by the Farmers Union Insurance Company. John Hedman is your agent, and Doug Franke, who is a specialist in tax services. Next door to that office is Clip and Curl, a beauty salon where gals can get the latest look in hairstyles. Helen Knutson runs this business. The Twin Valley Ulen Telephone Company has handled the phone service in this area for many, many years. It's fast, convenient service that evolved from a simple one-room telephone switchboard that first appeared just after the turn of the century. For leisure, there's plenty of things to do in town. If you carry more maturity than most, you are more than welcome at the Ulen Senior Citizens Center. It opens 5 days a week, bingo is played here, and meals are prepared for both home delivery and here at the center. If collecting knickknacks is your hobby, you must visit Ventures Unlimited. It's owned and operated by Philip Dashinger. There's dolls, gifts, ceramics, toys, crafts, and porcelain. But if you enjoy history as a hobby, the Ulen Museum is a great resource for you. It's owned and operated by the Ulen Historical Society. There's artifacts, pictures, and antiques of all kinds. And if plain old leisure is your hobby, check out Johnny's Recreation. It's a pool hall where friends come to visit and play some pool. The establishment is owned by Johnny Jensen. And all of the businesses and happenings of Ulen has been accurately and professionally recorded and reported by the Ulen Union. The town's weekly paper is published here by David Evans. Two Lutheran churches are the spiritual backbone of this town. There's Bethlehem Lutheran Church with its beautiful bell tower and chimes. The brick cross on the building was built by Ole Knudsen, better known as Cement Ole from Ulen. An expert bricklayer, Cement Ole worked on the cross during his spare time. His excellent work is appreciated by all. Pastor William A. Maines is the minister of this church. Services begin at 9:30. And there's Calvary Lutheran Church, a double-A frame building where Christians meet each week to worship God. The shepherd for this body of believers is Pastor Paul G. Matson. Services begin at 9 o'clock each Sunday morning. The homes of Ulen today reflect the modern taste of society. Many newer homes add to the town's distinct look. One of the homes is valued at $300,000. Other homes were built in the middle part of the 20th century. They also are well manicured and beautify the area. This is one of the first homes to be built in Ulen. The Herman and Thurene Dahl family and their 6 children lived here in the early 1900s. 3 of the original Dahl children returned to their childhood home during the 1986 centennial. The home was later purchased by Don Forsyth and family, who restored it with beautiful antiques and turn-of-the-century furniture. The Dahl sisters say it's much like they remembered it as kids. For them, it was a walk down memory lane. This is Magdalene Dahl Connor.
A wonderful childhood, just great. Mother and Dad were always there to back us, and our friends were always welcome in this house. That means a lot to me. And, I don't know, it's home. It'll always be home.
Dorgan Dahl Townsend also remembers.
During the winter months, we went skating, and we had our sleds to go coasting, and during the summer months, it was to go out to the lake and picnics, and we had a great time.
And all 3, who are great-grandchildren of Ole Ulen, have a special feeling about their roots.
It was carefree and wonderful, and we just had such wonderful friends around here. Friend on that corner, friend on that corner. Grandfather lived down the road. We could go down there to the river anytime, have our picnics, no griping about fires. I mean, we were just welcomed. It was just a happy family relationship. It was great.
I feel very proud that my mother and father built this beautiful home, and I wish that we were all together.
Ulen is not only proud of its homes, but also proud of its facilities and services. There's the Ulen City Park, located north of town. The park provides a shelter area and picnic tables for family outings. Camping is also provided, along with restrooms, a playground area, and barbecue pits. An easy-to-read map is in the heart of the park, which outlines the facility's 37 acres. In those areas are hiking, ski, and snowmobile trails, 2 to 3 miles long. There's also a new footbridge that crosses a branch of the Wild Rice River. It's used for skiing, biking, and walking. The maroon-colored bridge was built in the early 1980s by the town. And just south of the new bridge is the old footbridge. Later on, we'll tell you what special significance this bridge has concerning Ulen's 100th birthday. The bridge borders the clay hill. Among the services Ulen offers is its fire department, which consists of 22 outstanding volunteer firefighters. Their equipment, which is located right next to the City Hall, includes a rural fire truck, a water tanker, and an equipment van that carries the firefighters' clothes. The town also has a well-known rescue squad that handles emergencies of all kinds. One of the most popular places to go in Ulen is the VFW Club, or officially known as the Sander Jacobson Post VFW 5115. Sander Jacobson was the first veteran from Ulen killed in World War II. The club has catered to literally thousands of people through the years. It served as a meeting ground for people to exchange ideas, thoughts, and a part of themselves. However, it's not just war veterans and their families who have been coming here since the building was constructed in 1946. Rather, it's more of a community meeting hall where many different groups meet to discuss business. Everyone uses it for bingo, for dances, for sharing good times. This day's luncheon included ham sandwiches, hot dogs, barbecues, potato salad, baked beans, coleslaw, cookies, donuts, coffee, and lemonade. The food was prepared and provided by the VFW Ladies Auxiliary, Post 5115. This is what people active in the VFW Club of 1986 think about their town. Maxine Lundberg.
I was born and raised here, and although my husband and I left for quite a while, we came back here when we retired because our ties were still here, I guess.
Ines Asselson.
It's just a wonderful place to be. That's it. I love to raise your children here, and just everything about Ulen is nice.
Phyllis Forsyth.
Very friendly town. I've been here all my life. I was born and raised here, and it's a very, very friendly town. A bunch of Norwegians, and I'm a purebred Norwegian.
Basil Forsyth.
Home. It's the only place that is home. I've lived here practically all my life. Went to school here, graduated, come back to it after the war. It's home.
And current VFW Commander Owen Brossett.
To see what we were like and what we were doing and how we lived, and always keep changing.
You want them to keep the town going as well, I would imagine?
Well, I would like to see that. I'd like to see this club keep going the way it is doing now.
Another facility that Ulen is proud of is the Viking Manor Nursing Home. 66 senior citizens reside here. The nursing home employs 60 people. On its 20th anniversary, celebrated during the July 4th, 1986 holiday weekend, nursing home administrator Todd Scholes crowned Viking Manor's king and queen. The king was 98-year-old Soren Jensen, who used to be the town's blacksmith for many, many years. The queen was 99-year-old Helmina Mellon, a lifelong resident of Ulen. Also part of the anniversary's festivities was the kickoff to the Ulen Centennial. Chairman of the Centennial Committee, Gordy Nichols, reminded the audience that the committee has been planning the Centennial celebration for 4 years. But what a celebration it turned out to be. With fireworks in the air and celebration on their minds, the town of Ulen was prepared for a major festival, the Ulen Centennial. Literally thousands of people from coast to coast were in town for the Centennial. An estimated 6,000 people jammed the streets. And there were plenty of events and activities during the Centennial to keep everyone busy. It was small-town Americana at its best for those at the Centennial Band concert outside the school. Director Don Forsyth and the more than 30-member band and chorus delighted the crowds with a potpourri of musical tunes. It was a classic afternoon concert under the brilliant sun, all adding up to a very special time. For the gals, the Sisters of the Swish style show was especially delightful.
Sherry Schreiner and her daughters described stand-up elbow-fitted bodies with shaped waistline and gathered skirts that has lace and ribbon trim. These were made by Joanne Holting. The girls are a pinafore style dress with the lace bottom, burgundy calico pockets.
Dresses from the 1800s to the present were modeled by some 20 women and girls from the Ulen area.
Deanne Kading, 10 years old, the daughter of Maria and Kenneth Kading of Moorhead. She is wearing the Centennial dress that her mother, Marie Wold, wore 25 years ago for Ulen's 75th anniversary.
It was a fun time enjoyed by all. For the men, the Centennial featured a horseshoe championship. 24 participants in teams of 2 began the tournament. To advance, you had to win 2 out of 3 matches against your competition.
Oh, no. No score. Come on there.
It was a great opportunity to test your shoe skills. And although the tournament had to be moved to the grass because of wet conditions, it did not slow down these marksmen.
Good one. Go. Got 4.
Each person had his unique style of going for the ringer.
Atta boy. Hey, hey! Sick. Never happen. Here, give me that.
Now, if you got too hot throwing shoes or modeling a dress, you could always walk on over to the dunking booth for a quick shower. With 3 shots for 50 cents or 6 shots for $1, you could dunk your favorite Ulen celebrity. Here, Johnny Green of Ulen takes a quick dive into the water as cheers of put 'em down, ring in the background. What better to do on a hot, muggy 4th of July Centennial than to get wet?
We try and try in our own strength to make things come out right. Try with all might, but when we finally reach the bottom, the Lord reminds us once again,
Well, instead of getting wet, you could have enjoyed Ulen's children's musical. It was called Salty's Sing-Along-a-thon Maranatha Marathon. It's a story about Salty hosting a telethon where kids from all over the world are calling in their favorite song. However, everything comes to an abrupt halt when God temporarily pulls the plug on the television studio. God reminds Salty that it's his power that things are accomplished for the kingdom of heaven. Attitudes change, and the power is plugged back in, and all glory is given to God. Around 35 kids from Ulen and Hitterdal performed the musical in front of a packed house at the Ulen School's gymnasium. Some of those people who cheered Salty on also cheered on some photographers. It was the Asselson family picture involving more than 150 people. These are direct descendants of Ole Asselson, the son-in-law of Ole Ulen, the town's founder. The descendants include the great-great-great-great-grandchildren of Ole Ulen. A major part of any centennial celebration is reminiscing through the years, and never was that more evident than at the all-school reunion here at Ulen, home of the Spartans. And there were plenty of Spartans at the school, renewing friendships and remembering the old days.
Smile now.
17 people graduated from Ulen High back in 1936. At this, their 50th year reunion, most of the 17 were back, and they also invited their first grade teacher. 84-year-old Mildred Sparby, who was paid $100 a month to teach back then. She then taught for 44 years before retiring in 1967. Mildred says it's an honor that her former students asked her to join them in this reunion.
Well, you just can't imagine what it'll be like unless you have experienced it, to know that they care enough to ask you to come back. And because this is the second time I've been with them. They had a class reunion about maybe 5 years ago, and I was invited, and now I was invited again. And that made me feel that maybe I was considered, that they liked me. And
you must have been their special teacher.
I don't know about that, but they were very special pupils. You can't imagine the experience or the feeling I had the very first day of school, when school assembled and the last bell rang, and here were all those little faces in front of me, and the first thing that entered my mind was, here they are, and I'm supposed to teach them how to read. Can I do it? I won't have any critic here to tell me what's right and wrong. I have to go by my own judgment.
Mildred and her students say the difference between school then and now is like night and day. Materials not near the same, books weren't colored, papers certainly not glossy. Today you have many more elective courses. Back then you were taught the basics. Eldora Carey and her sister-in-law Frances Carey remember.
The classes were smaller. Reading, writing, and arithmetic were really taught, and we became very good readers right away because we had such good teachers. Of course, we didn't have computers. That's come in since. Our grandchildren are perhaps much more aware and probably a little bit more mature than we were. We were very innocent in those days. Don't you think?
Yes, and then also our lives more or less centered more with the activities in the town, whereas the children now they have sports activities that bring them all over.
Yes.
They aren't centered right in the town activities. They are spread out more than what it was in our days. Simply, the economics were different then.
Other students have different memories. Merle Sherman, class of 22, recalls sitting by the radiator during cold days and walking many miles to school. She doesn't entirely believe the old days were necessarily the good days.
No, some of us walked into high school, and some of those cold days we'd sit by the radiator to warm up and put up with chilblains. I remember that. The students that came in from what we call Broughtonby walked in, and some of us from south of town walked into school. And so we would tell stories about our walking into high school. We told those stories many years afterwards, the distance we walked just to go to high school, before the buses took care of that transportation.
Were those the good old days?
Well, good in some ways, but I wouldn't give up many of the modern conveniences that we have. I think we learned a great deal in school, and the smaller classes in some ways made for better learning, and yet there wasn't as much exchange between people because the classes were smaller.
Later, all of the former Ulen Spartans were treated to an exceptional dinner. The menu included meatballs, turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy, salad, and rolls. Everyone chowed down because there was plenty of time during the night to burn out those calories. That's because the Great American Ballroom Dance Band performed. And who couldn't get up and dance when the band performed one of Glenn Miller's biggest hits, In the Mood? The Ulen All-School Reunion, a special time for special people. Another one of the major highlights of the Centennial here at Ulen was the 250-unit parade, a parade that snaked around the town and was so long that the front end met up with the back. Although it rained at times on this impressive display, it certainly did not dampen the spirits of the people here. The hardy Norwegians weren't bothered by a few raindrops.
Hallelujah, I'm ready. Hallelujah, I'm ready to go. Four guys, you hit the road, go moving round the ring. You got to get on home and swing. That girl is coming in the ring. Hallelujah, I'm ready. Hallelujah, I'm ready to go. Side square through, four hands go. Round that corner with no sorrow. Swing through, 2 by 2, boys run right.
Floats of all kinds were here, along with antique cars from throughout the state of Minnesota. There were, of course, horses and clowns that entertained the people. All in all, the Ulen Centennial Parade was simply delightful. The morning events here at the Ulen Centennial were highlighted by the delicious breakfasts. Here, the Calvary Lutheran Church Ladies' Aid put on a scrumptious meal. It included quiche, muffin, juice, and coffee. It's all you can eat for $3. You can't beat that deal. And over 250 people knew that as they helped themselves to a hearty breakfast served at the school. There were plenty of exciting activities and events during the evening hours here at the Centennial. It began with a look back at Ulen's history as depicted by the Ulen Centennial pageant. The pageant was highlighted by outstanding singing and acting. The pageant, like any good history book, showed the good and the bad, the humorous and sad, the progressive and stagnant, and the difficult and simple days of Ulen. Many memories were stirred from those who watched.
Ryan, we'd like to have sisters in our family, don't we? Can you spell sister?
S-I-S-R-T. S-I-S-T-E-R.
Good, you got it right. And without a brother, Tiffany, can you spell brother? We need brothers in our family too, don't we?
B-R-O-T-H-E-R.
Ryan, Tiffany was doing all right without your help. Tiffany, you may spell it again.
B-R-O-T-H-E-R.
Fine. And sometimes we have an uncle come to visit us, don't we, Sheena? Can you spell uncle? Right. And Jeffrey will give you the last word. Sometimes we have one cousin or many cousins. Can you spell cousin?
C-O-U-S-E-N.
Oh, what was the letter that he misspelled? What part of the word did he misspell? What should it have been? I am. Well, we know that Jeffrey and Alicia are going to study the word harder for our next spelling lesson, I think. Now then, I'm going to let you go outdoors to play, but first of all, put your chalkboards and your chalk up there. Yes,
The pageant showed the first immigrants arriving in America and in Ulen, and many, many other scenes from the past. For many, it was difficult to believe the town being 100 years old. During the Centennial celebration, you had every chance to dance the night away. On Friday, the VFW Club held a dance featuring a Norwegian group called Buskerud. The group is one of the top bands in Norway. The band played Norwegian old-time music, in different parts of Norway. And those young at heart folks had their chance to dance to the foot-stomping Norwegian tunes. All troubles and worries were non-existent this night as current and former Ulenites danced through the evening. But the young people of Ulen certainly would not be outdone on the dance floor. With a three-member band called Sneakers, the teens also enjoyed the festive Centennial experience, and they loved it. And speaking about loving it, who could not love the polka music of Dave Coley? He entertained many more at yet another dance at the VFW Club. And when people here at the Centennial weren't dancing, they were enjoying the spectacular July 4th display of fireworks. The lengthy show was a big hit, bringing many oohs and ahs from the thousands of people who watched. And the show ended with a brilliant design specifically made for this centennial. And as the centennial came to a close, the people here certainly are not dwelling on the past, but rather looking back at their roots with dignity and respect. The people of Ulen today want to build on the pioneering spirit of their forefathers, looking ahead with pride and determination to make Ulen an even better community for future generations. The symbol of this 1986 Ulen Centennial is the old footbridge near the town's park. As it connects both sides of a branch of the Wild Rice River, so too does this centennial connect Ulen's proud past to its bright future.